بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا من فضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Allah. I've been asked to answer a number of questions about the events from January 26th in Haiti, which ended in casualties of approaching 250,000 people, and the true counts will never probably be known in their details. Those who are asking questions, who are listening, ask, in light of such large-scale destruction, many are asked how this could happen, and are now searching for answers. The best place to look for answers is, as my father used to say when we would open new things and fiddle with them for a while, he used to say, well, when all else fails, read the instructions. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left instructions for the felicity of mankind. And the book that He has sent down, the Holy Quran, and in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so it contains, whoever wants to understand everything, read the Quran and you'll understand everything. Tafsilan li kulli shay', a detailed account of every single thing. I know. So how could this happen? Allah made it happen. What does it consist in? It consists in someone besides us who owns something, who did something with what he owned that he knows far, far better than we what it is. In general, we have to, in order to understand the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first thing to understand is that Allah is not a big human being. He is Allah. He understands everything. How many thoughts do you have a day? Well, most of us have a couple, or more than a couple, hundreds, thousands. How many of your thoughts do other people know around you, such that they could arrive at a judgment for and against you based on the score of what you think? How many see everything that you do? How can we judge even the people that we know? It's not so easy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Hakimun Alim. He's all wise and He's all knowing. In other words, He doesn't miss much. Anything. Why? Because He's the one who's creating it and bringing it into existence at every point and at every time and at every second. And so, the secret of the fate of every single person who died in Haiti, and there's a bigger disaster coming than what happened in Haiti. There's a disaster that is going to come, and it will suddenly eradicate every single human being from your gaze. What is it? Your own death. Everyone who's hearing these words is going to die. All of the world will disappear at that time. Altogether. One stroke. All gone. And what does it mean? It means that there is a particular relation between the realities that concern you. Between you. We've already mentioned how difficult you are to know. How much do we even remember of what we were thinking of 20, 4 years ago on this night, or 5 years ago on this night. Not very much. And there's your grave, what state you will die in. Some will die in a state of Iman, and after a brief time that they'll hardly notice if they're mu'mineen, they'll enter into endless bliss with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in paradise. Others are reached by the warning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do this, don't do that. Is he warning people because he wants something for himself? He's already got everything. He doesn't admit of any increase in dominion or increase of anything that we can offer. Rather, he's taught people what will benefit them forever, for them, for their sake. And so others refuse. They say, well, I'm just having too good of a time now. I don't want to change. And they refuse the message of the Prophet, anciently and modernly. And so these people have chosen to die in a state that is unenviable. And there are others who haven't been reached by any message from the Prophet or any of the Prophets, alayhim as-salatu was-salam. Haven't been reached by the Quran and the message. They haven't heard about the choice. فَرِيقٌ فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَفَرِيقٌ فِي السَّعِيرِ. One party shall be in paradise, the groves, luxuriant groves of paradise forever. لَهُمْ مَا يَشَاءُونَ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ. They shall have whatever they desire with their Lord. وَفَرِيقٌ فِي السَّعِيرِ. And another party of them in a blaze, a fiery blaze that will never die down, that will only mount up. In comparison, in comparison with which everything else dwindles of the pains that we experience in this world. And so, imagine that suddenly a meteor came down from the sky in the room where you're sitting and wiped out you and your workstation and all the people all together around you. How many stories are there? Well, in the newspapers, which correspond to what Plato might have called Ikasia, or the very lowest level of knowledge, the shadows that are cast on the wall by the people in the cave of the fire behind them. The newspapers are at that level. A meteor hit a bunch of people and killed them all. What's the story? But when you think about it for a moment, it's not what's the story. It can be summarized in a newspaper article by the likes of those who meet deadlines for their paper, or the bloggers or anybody else. There's a story for each human being in that room, each human being in that house that's hit, each human being in Haiti has an individual story. Now, my ignorance of Haiti, I haven't visited Haiti, and I don't know all of the people in it, or even some of them. I worked with a few before in Los Angeles, in the United States. But it's the vast unknown, but they're scarcely less unknown than the people around me and the people around you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a particular wisdom. Where is the wisdom? The wisdom is in the relation of that person to their own destiny. The wisdom lies in their own choice. And some don't have any wisdom, and they've chosen foolishness over wisdom. So when the tsunami came in the Indian Ocean, one of the ulama of Islam, seeking to reassure someone, I'm not sure who, he said, this doesn't have anything to do with divine punishment. This is just a natural disaster. this is a statement sufficient to completely prove his ignorance. What do you know about Allah's purpose in bringing about an event like this? Who said beside you? And likewise, the fundamentalist preacher in the United States, whose name I won't mention, recently said, well, it doesn't prove that God doesn't exist. It proves that God exists and he was punishing them all. That's also fallacious and erroneous. It's wrong. Because what we believe in every place on the earth, that there are good people and there are bad people. Whoever works an atom's weight of good will certainly see it. And whoever works an atom's weight of bad will certainly see it. And as for death, well, if Allah was a big man and he ended people's lives, he would have to be tried for murder. But he's not a big man. He's the Rabbul Alameen. He's the Lord. Rabb is a word that means he who educates and raises the consciousness and brings to their full fruition all the worlds of beings. So he's of a different order. The mice can talk to each other about what the scientist is doing with their environment and what he's feeding them. Well, they got some sugar water today and we only got... But what do they know about the total context of the laboratory and the person who is feeding them for the time being? Very little. Also, they have a mouse intellect. What do they know about what the human intellect can understand about the experiment or what the situation? Similarly, we have a human intellect, which the seat is apparently the brain, and the brain is the most complex thing in the universe that we know of. There's nothing more complex than it. The biggest computer is not a tenth as complex as any human brain. The human brain is not capable of understanding the purposes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I have to make a disclaimer. I can't speak for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except in as far as he has spoken to all of us through the Quran and through the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There is no injustice. Where is the justice? There's no injustice in any chastisement that Allah sends down. We know from the Quran that Allah wiped out entire peoples. He mentions it himself. Man ashaddu minna quwwa. Who is mightier than we in power and in force? These were the famous last words of a large number of people. And they'll continue to be until Allah inherits the earth and everyone upon it. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that أنزل الله بقوم عذابا وصابر عذاب من كان فيهم ثم بعثوا على أعمالهم. Said when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down a chastisement, it is generalized, the good people and the bad people alike. He says, when Allah sends down a chastisement, the chastisement smites everyone among them, everyone among the whole people, the good and the bad and the otherwise. And then they are raised up according to their works. And so this is the justice. The justice exists not today or tomorrow. One cynical philosopher, he said, justice is that which exists between two opponents of equal strength. And justice isn't that for the believer. Justice is to weigh and measure each human being's choice. And not say, well, Allah wiped them all out because all of them were wicked. No, wrong. But rather ثُمَّ بُعِثُوا عَلَىٰ أَعْمَالِهِمْ. They are raised up according to the works that each one of them did. And so first we have to, anybody judging, they say, well, this proves that Allah is a bad guy, the atheists. His only excuse is that he doesn't exist. Well, guess again, my friend. Whoever says this, a chastisement has come down upon him, the chastisement of disbelief. Why? Because composite ignorance is harder to eradicate than simple ignorance. He doesn't know anything about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he thinks he knows all about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So his affliction of his ignorance is worse than anything besides. Although everyone has an intellect, everyone who is responsible to choose. People who don't have any intellect are of the people of paradise, insha'Allah ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't punish them because they don't have the equipment to obey. And people similarly who have not heard the message or have only heard a twisted version of it, they don't know about the person of the Prophet ﷺ also. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. We don't send any chastisement until we send a messenger. And so the last, the final, the ultimate, and the eternal chastisement also will not affect those, but those who hear and disobey. And so I don't know the mu'amala of the people, or even very many of them, or any of them, who were in Haiti on the 26th of January 2010. I don't know the mu'amala, the dealings that each of them had with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, to say it was no divine punishment at all is presumptuous. It's jari'. It is presumptuous about saying something that you don't know. So someone who does not know what to say should remain silent. As one of the philosophers said. In light of such large-scale destruction, many are asked how this could happen. He who owned it did what he wanted with it, and he knows it far, far better than anyone else. He knows the position and velocity of every single particle in the universe because he is the one existentiating them. And it's all his. I know my rights. Nobody can say that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody has a case to make against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he has offered you infinite bliss on the one hand. Here it is. Believe in the haqq. Believe in the truth. That's all you have to do is accept the truth and you'll be saved. This is the position of Islam. Islam is the truth. Accept it and you'll be saved. Here's the choice for you. Where's the injustice in that? As for death, it's inevitable. Well, everybody died, but I'm not going to. Nobody says that except somebody who didn't get it. So, a pop quiz. Here we are holding forth in a lecture or in a lesson. My private musings actually said aloud. And we have a pop quiz. Teachers used to strike terror into our hearts by saying that phrase. The pop quiz is everyone who hears these words, what have you done about the plight of the people in Haiti? Did you offer any advice that benefited anybody? Did you reach in your pocket and pull out some money and send it to them, and so that they could rebuild their country, and that the living could carry on, or that they could at least bury their dead, or at least find medical attention? Did you, given an inability to do either, did you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who controls everything, did you ask him to help them? If you didn't do any of these things, then you fail the pop quiz. So it's a test also for us. What did I do? Well, not very much, now that you mention it. Well, where's the wisdom in your part of the room, my friend? And where's the mercy in your part of the room, my friend? And where's the justice in your part of the room, my friend? What would you like to be done with you if a similar affliction came down in the town where you were? So these are telling questions. And they should be asked, we should ask them of ourselves, because Allah will ask. These are relief work and rescue and aid to afflicted areas is something that is fard. It's mandatory and obligatory and incumbent upon every single Muslim to do what he can. There's a fard kifaya. All of the Muslims are responsible to get something done, to do something. And if nobody does anything, nobody relieves the sufferers, then everybody is guilty of a monstrous crime. Allah. Well, where is the divine mercy in all of this? The mercy is when people understand the meaning of life and death. The mercy is not any farther than the confines of your own life. Each of us. The mercy between Allah and between the human being is there, between Allah and between that human being. If the human being benefits from the example of others, well, I too will perish. Everything will be wiped out. Not the car, not the house, not the pool, not my computer, not anything will be left, not even me. This is what death means. So the mercy, and as far as there's mercy concerning this event, the mercy that you know and that counts as far as you're concerned ultimately is right in the part of the room that you're in. Somebody who is bitter against what Allah has destined or is in a state of unbelief, I don't believe it. Although, so this atheism and these philosophical arguments, my entire conviction about them is that people have a lot of high-flown philosophical ideas about why they are atheists or why they have ceased to be believers, why they have left Islam, why they were in the tariq al-akhirah, why they were in the path of the next world, and then they left it in order to be something else, to be less, to be a son of this world. They all have high-flown philosophical reasons, but most of it returns to shahwat, to their own pleasures and desires, because they don't like to be told what to do. This is the crux. And so it's human stubbornness. This is why most people can't accept Islam. You mean I have to do such and such, and I can't do this? And then they think up some philosophical argument to justify their inability to do it. Shahawat, these are the reasons. 99 cases out of 100. So where is the divine mercy in all of this? Check your own address. What did you understand from it? If you understand that you are finite and you better get going on something, you better get something going between you and the omnipotent being who is the master of your fate, then the mercy is right where you are. This event is a mercy to you, without a doubt. It's one of the survivors of the tsunami today says, no, he says, there's no doubt left in my mind. We've seen the power of God. A mercy to such a person. When people die, as I said, again, with any particular person, how are we going to judge? Allah is the only one who can judge. A particular human being I'm talking about. Let alone judge Allah himself. Who can judge Allah? Only Allah can judge himself. And what does he say with his beginningless eternal speech? That is only truth. It's supreme truth and without any admixture of anything besides. He says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about himself. It means every possible praise and glorification and perfection and beauty and supreme attribute of exalted perfection and transcendence above any imperfection is possessed by this one entity, Allah. So he's already judged himself by saying it in so many words, 2 words. That's his sentence. Anybody else who says anything else doesn't know. There's nothing besides the truth except ignorance or lying. And where is the justice? The justice is being able to, is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rules. Or the justice between Allah and between any servant is what that servant will say to him. When Allah says, I gave you all of this to understand. I gave you an intellect. I gave you ears with which to hear the message. I sent messenger after messenger after messenger and consummated the succession of messengers with one whose scripture was unchanged and will remain unchanged until the last day. Did you try to understand it? Did you read it? Or did you say, well, I'd rather do what I'm doing anyway. I don't want to obey anybody. Who says I have to obey anybody? Everything is elective. That's what they taught us in grade school and what they taught us in high school. We're the best. There's nothing that's incumbent or obligatory. That's just words. Someone who says this, the justice is there for them also, and they'll see it. Where is the divine wisdom? This is my remarks by necessity are very perfunctory and brief and short tonight. However, I spelled them out in greater detail in an essay called On Suffering and the Divine Wisdom. It's on Masood Khan's website and on Sidi Hamid's website. People can read it if they wish. We mentioned that basically suffering has many wisdoms in it in relation to what we experience between ourselves, as human beings. The doctor, when he makes open heart surgery, he splits the sternum and opens up the chest and takes out the heart. If anybody has ever been cut deeply, if anyone has ever been injured, you know what it feels like when you get a really telling injury. It hurts for a long time afterwards. Does this mean that everybody who operates on somebody should be sued for causing human suffering? No. Why? Because we're intelligent enough to realize that there is good pain and there is bad pain. Good pain is that which sends you to the doctor in the first place. I got something wrong with me, doc. Whether it's mental pain, if you're not all there and you need help to get your mind adjusted, there might be something wrong with your intellect, or something wrong with your body, you have pain that other people don't have. And it sends you to the doctor. And so you get yourself fixed up, or you give up on doctors and find another way to fix yourself up. Or you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask. And He gives you tawfiq to the means. He gives you success to realize the means by which you get fixed up. All of these are good pain. All of them. You eat something that gives you a stomach ache. It turns an even worse situation away from you. If you stuffed yourself with it, you'd really have a stomach ache. And so you learn for the next time. I mentioned in this essay this title I mentioned earlier, On Suffering and the Divine Wisdom, that of every single animate organism on the planet that has a complex interaction with its environment, it's difficult to name one that cannot feel pain. Why? Because it's simply too useful, both to the individual and to the species. If it didn't have any pain, it would be sure to meet destruction. And so pain is experienced by the individual, but not only by the individual. Pain is also experienced by the society. The earliest and the latest writings of Charles Dickens, for example, talk about the system of government that existed in England in his time, a system of economic justice, where anybody in debt would simply be thrown into prison until they could pay. Can't pay, you don't get out of prison. And so mostly they would die in prison. It doesn't seem like much of a solution to us. Didn't seem like much of a solution to him, and so what did he do? Dramatized it, and he wrote about it. He said, well, let's get some other system than just sending the debtor to the prison to wait until he can pay, and sending his wife and children to the workhouse, to the sweatshop, to work for room and board and nothing besides. There must be a better system than this. And so society felt the pain, and society changed with the spur of his and many other people's words like him. So society can feel pain also. And mankind can feel pain. Another society can reflect on the example. What happened to this people, and what happened to that people? And this is the wisdom of the divine wisdom, not all of it, but some of it, the divine wisdom in mentioning what happened to the previous peoples in the Quran. We can understand that our nation, well, you must be kidding, we're the peak of progress. Does our nation fade away? Well, it will. Why should it be any different than the other ones? And so all of these can experience beneficial pain. What if houses were built slightly differently? Many wall-supported structures collapsed in countries where there weren't any building laws, and people died in them, and then laws came. There are many wisdoms. And as we said, the first thing to understand is that what do you really know about the people around you? What do you really know about just for example, about the people? How many of their thoughts are subject to your scrutiny? Well, now that you mention it, a minuscule proportion. Well, how then can you say all of these innocent people died? We're not talking about people who are children. When children die, they reach paradise, endless bliss. This is our entire conviction about them. We're talking about people who grow old enough to have a choice. What do you know about their innocence or about their guilt? Those who say, well, they all died because of a punishment, or it proves that God is unjust because they were all innocent. Who says? Who are you to judge others? No one can judge them except their Creator, except insofar as concerns worldly rights and obligations, which is why there are worldly rights and obligations.